Good morning, friends. It's Sunday morning and I decided to come to a little garden tour just to take a walk through and not do a lot of work because it's just perfect out here. A storm's gonna be rolling in this morning, so it's cool. And then I walked out and saw that glorious sunset and I just had to put it to music. But as many of you have said, the garden is just wild right now, in control, but wild, and some parts out of control. And I'm in one of my favorite places right now, what I call the pumpkin garden, and I'm just looking at all the fruit that's coming in, the pumpkins, the winter squash, and many other things, watermelon, cantaloupe, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna get all this harvested. I can barely walk through here. And I know that you guys are probably feeling the same way, but I love it. I think the most exciting part is when you see things like this cantaloupe developing. There's been several of my patty pan squash that I stopped hand pollinating because there were so many bees out here and then they actually didn't get pollinated, but that's okay, there's a ton more. And I've got so many in my fridge right now, I don't know what to do with them. All my winter squash is looking ecstatic. They're doing amazing and really just kind of growing out of the garden here, which is really funny because Matt asked me, he's like, I know you're just gonna extend the garden again, but I'm really not having to because the plants are doing it themselves. They're completely growing out of the fence, which is good because I'd kind of rather them grow out than in because I'm running out of space in there. But all kinds of little baby fruits on here. You can see them right here. And now I'm having to remember which one's which. I thought this was the sweet meat plant, but that is actually the honey boat leaf right there, which I have several of them. Maddie and I were checking them all out yesterday. Where is that other little baby one that we were looking at? Oh, here it is, little baby honey boat right there. Won't focus on it. Right there. And another one here. And this beautiful guy right in here. Now when these mature, they'll be yellow, mostly yellow with green stripes. So it's so funny that they start off green with yellow stripes because it really kind of just flip-flops once they're ripe. So this honey boat plant is huge. It already has a ton of fruit on it. I'm still waiting for my sugar pie pumpkins to produce some fruit. So far, I've only seen male blossoms. So maybe it's just a little late getting going. So I'm keeping my eye open for some sugar pie pumpkins. Hopefully it'll do something. And then this is my sweet meat. I had to think about it. This is my sweet meat plant over here, which is doing what I wanted to do and growing up this palette, and then we'll grow down. So thankfully it's coming this way to allow that watermelon over there to sprawl and those butternut squashes over there to take over. So this is looking really good. All the fruit on it. It's beautiful growing up the fence line here. And all these, literally, they're just kind of coming this way. Oh, see, here's one. That might be a sugar pie pumpkin right there. It's either sugar pie or honey nut. That might be the honey nut squash. I can't really tell till they start getting bigger, but anyway. My morning glories have completely taken over this trellis. I need to come this way so you can actually see their blooms. And they're super pretty, but I forget how prolific morning glories are. They have pretty much covered this whole side. And I've had to clip some of their leaves to be able just to give these tomato plants back in there fighting chance for sunlight, but they seem to be doing fine, so I'm not too worried about it. And it's beautiful to come out here in the morning and see all these yellow and purple blooms, but they are definitely taking over. One seed goes a long way, I'm just telling you. And then as we move this way down Flower Alley, which I love, all my zinnias are coming in. I've already clipped several of them. They're getting really full. This is 2 plants right here. I love this one. So beautiful. And then these sunflowers are just amazing. My kids and I joke that they're facing the wrong direction. They're all facing towards the garden and we can't see them from the house. But their colors are so pretty and so different. This is my wild tomato plant that sprung up from a marigold start that I did in the house. Apparently I had planted a tomato in there and didn't realize it. So since it's on the other side of the fence and it kind of has all this space, I'm letting it be a little bit more wild than the rest of mine. It's doing really well. I'm not too crazy yet. I won't let it get too out of control, but I'm curious to see what kind of cherry tomato it is. This is my Armenian cucumber, which finally decided to just beat all. He was really slow starting, and that's because he's a part of the melon family, not cucumber family, so they're slower growing. But once they get going, they really get going. And he is taller than these other cucumber plants that were the ones I actually started in my house. I find that to be really interesting. Actually, I think this is my cucumber, and that is my Armenian cucumber. I'd have to trace them down to the bottom to see which one is which, but they look similar. Oh, I know. The kind of this shaped leaf is the cucumber, and the rounded leaf like this is the Armenian cucumber. And this is the shape of melon leaves, like a cantaloupe, not watermelon, is the more rounded heart shape. So that's how I can tell which one's which. So this one, well, it's tricking me. It is, yeah. This is the cucumber, because there's one right there. And I found this yesterday. Woot woot. There is a baby Armenian cucumber right there, and it just totally snuck up on me. So that's how it works. I gotta keep my eye on those boogers. In here, in fact, this is like the second or third round of beans starting to develop in here. I've picked like a gallon or 2 of them already. Actually, probably 2 because of how many we've already eaten. And I've got several more gallons of beans in here developing, so that's exciting. I'm starting to read about how I want to prepare them. I think I'm going to can some and dehydrate others for like soup recipes, which I think is a great idea, to dehydrate beans and spices and things like that for a dehydrated soup, kind of like what you buy at the store. Knox, I think, is the brand. So I think I'm going to try that. Now, update on my these corn are now reaching the top of the fence, and this is a 10-foot fence, so that's how big this corn is. But if you notice, it's like tall and then it gradually goes down, and I think that is because of the sun. I'm like, I don't think it's the soil, because it's so uniform how these descend down the row. So I think it's just the way the sun, it comes from over here. So these are the first ones to receive the sun in the morning because it goes like this. And I just think that's so interesting that that much more sun causes them to be that much taller than the rest of them. So something to think about when you're planting corn or anything in your garden is how the sun actually, where it's setting and how it moves across your garden, because that's a clear sign that those are getting more sun and therefore are taller. Anyway, something to think about. But this is feeling much more manageable now. I pulled out all of the back squash plants. It was too much. And I'm so glad I did, because now it feels so much more manageable. I feel like the beans and the corns have much more room to grow and have air in there. I can get back in there and harvest better. Strangely enough, these guys are actually growing into the walkway now instead of actually being in the garden bed. So that's kind of funny. I think if I were to do it again, I would plant one row of squash maybe in the middle, kind of, and then that way, I'm not sure, I have to think about it, but it feels and actually looks really pretty because you've got the tall corn descending down to the cascading squash plants. So it's actually really beautiful and much more manageable. However, still, now it's like trying to get through here amongst the bees and the pollinators to get back here and look for these camouflaged beans. It's insane. I really think in the future, if I do pole beans, I will make sure they are a color like purple or pink or something, because it's so hard to find them unless you have them trellised really in an organized fashion, which, you know, how do you really organize nature? I like to pull all the yellow leaves off the plant. It is just incredibly hard to find these beans in here, and I know I've missed them. And of course, I'm out here with the bees, so I'm a little cautious to dig too far in here when they're all around me. Although so far they haven't bothered me. So far, knock on wood. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on how to make bean harvesting easier. The bush beans are really easy to harvest, and I am just sort of baffled by trying to find all these pole beans back in here. They're just so hard to see. Tomato row here, looking good. My cherry tomatoes have absolutely gone crazy and have reached the top of this trellis already. They are definitely the winners as far as height goes. My bigger tomatoes are still about 5 feet. They're starting to get a little taller. But the cherry tomatoes are definitely reaching for the skies. I have seen some yellow spots starting to show up on a couple of my plants, and this one in particular, which is my Napa Chardonnay cherry tomato, which is also my tallest and like most prolific plant in the garden, which kind of makes me sad, but it's still growing like crazy. It's still producing a ton of fruit, so it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. I will just come out here and clip these branches that are starting to look worse for the wear, like this one. I chopped a ton off the bottom here, so I don't want to completely strip it of all of its branches, but I don't know if it spreads or not. But it's just these two plants that really are showing signs of this, so maybe they're just more susceptible to it. I kind of want to read up on what other people who had this plant have to say about that. But it's still growing, so we'll see. I may come clip these two branches today. But the ones next to it seem to be fine. I mean, the lower leaves all have this upward curl, which is normal. It just means they're a little dehydrated, but we're getting a solid rain today, so I didn't water them. But the upper leaves are not as curly, and that's just kind of a normal thing. But it is something to take note of. So you may see these bags throughout my garden on my tomato plants. They are just a bag I got on Amazon that are used for like wedding. I I think they're called bouquet bags, but like it's what they put potpourri bags. And these are 5x7, which actually are not big enough for a lot of my tomatoes. But I was starting to notice things like this, or like little, what I think might be pest damage on a couple. I'm not sure, but what I decided to do was just to go ahead and cover them, especially the bigger tomatoes, with these bags to protect them from any pest damage before they ripen, because these guys will be ripening soon and I don't want to lose them, especially with them being so low to the ground here. I mean, they're just inches off the ground, so much more susceptible to pest damage. So I have a lot of my lower fruit in the bags, and especially my ones that are outside of the garden over there, because I don't know if Barney would try to eat them or not, or if a bunny comes in the garden. I don't want them munching on my fruit. So I got these for like $6 and change off of Amazon for 50, and I ordered 100 of them. And I think so far they seem to be working really well. They're really light. I mean, the sun and the water gets in there, but it also dries really quickly, so it's not like they're sitting in water. But as you can see, like this guy, he's starting to bust out of this bag. So if you have really big tomatoes, 5x7 is not going to be big enough, but for most tomatoes it will be. But that's an idea, especially if you're having problems with chipmunks or deer or anything that's eating your tomatoes when they start to ripen. You can grab these bags, put them on the fruit, and it'll protect them from that. On the left side of the garden, all these beefsteaks are looking really good. Again, they're not as tall as my cherry tomatoes, but this one's probably the tallest one right here. He's reaching up. And Merritt and I love to come out and check out these gold medal beefsteaks that are enormous. These guys are enormous. Just look at the size of them. And y'all, I have big hands. I have really big basketball piano playing hands, and this thing is taking up my whole palm. They're huge. So that is gonna be really exciting. And I couldn't get the bag over them. So hopefully they will not be destroyed by pests. I may see if I can find a drawstring bag that's a little bigger to protect those babies, because those are gonna be really fun to harvest. And everything else is doing well. And the German pinks kind of probably are probably the next big variety is, my words. Everything else is doing really well. Not as big as the gold medal tomatoes, but still some really nice tomatoes in here. This one is a definite fasciated one that I've been talking about. You can see all the holes in there. It happens when these tomatoes fuse. Some of them are worse than others. I'll have to find the one that just looks nasty because of all the holes in it. And then of course you have just your normal tomatoes, but on every plant I have at least one fasciated tomato. Oh, look at that. Oh, interesting. Huh, I wonder what that is. Hopefully that is not a sign of blossom rot. I may have to take that one off. It's on the side of it though, so it makes me think a pest must have gotten to it, because it's not on the bottom where you normally see blossom rot. It's on the side. Huh. I'll have to keep an eye on that. I may just pull it off. I can't tell you what that is. It looks like, I don't know. But oh, it is a fasciated tomato, so maybe it has something to do with that. But that is not blossom rot, because you would normally see that here at the bottom. Something else is going on with this one, but it's not on any of the other tomatoes that I can tell. This particular plant is, this is the pork chop. It's a really pretty yellow tomato, and I've noticed that this one is super susceptible to the fasciated blossoms. It has several, 1, 2, 3. Here's one, a small fasciated one. 4. That one I just pulled off. 5. I just saw another one on orange. Oh, this one right here. This is huge. Look at this guy in here. He's very fasciated. So I have taken note that this one is definitely susceptible to the fasciated blossoms, which isn't a bad thing, but as you can tell, like that bottom part of the tomato won't be edible, just the sides. So we'll see. We're I have just the potatoes are growing, look really good. I have to come in here and clip off the bottom leaves because they are more susceptible when it rains to just turning yellow and not looking very good. But I just pull them or cut them off, and it seems to be fine. I ran out of straw. I actually used all 5 bales of my straw, so I probably need to get some more, especially for the fall garden. But yeah, so I probably need to be putting some more under this, but I have run out, so I've got to get more. And then my crazy tomatillos, oh my gosh, these 3 plants really could have taken up this whole garden space. I've had to cut a bunch of branches off, and it's falling over, or it wants to fall over into all my squash plants, which, as you can see, I can't even really walk through here anymore because these are growing forward and that's growing this way, and I had to cut a lot of this out because it was taking over my peppers and my eggplants in here, which are looking amazing. They're looking really good. Like I really like the way I planted these, and we've got lots of fruit in here. The eggplants are really taking off, which is exciting because I wasn't really sure how they would do, and they're doing really well. I've got lots of fruit coming in on those. And my peppers are coming in. Actually, I was surprised to see how big my bell peppers were. I thought those were going to be slower going, but they're actually taking off as well. So in the future, I will either just have 1 or 2 tomatillos because they're super prolific. I mean, look at all this fruit on here. It's amazing. This looks like a bunch of little Chinese lanterns. I love it. But they're very, very big, prolific plants. So another eggplant in there and another one growing right above them. Lots of blossoms. And the pollinators have been getting back in here to pollinate them, which I've been surprised by. So they're definitely getting pollinated. Here's my traveler stain jalapenos, which will turn red if I let them. Those are really starting to come in. Whoop, where are you? There they are. I think these are the poblanos because of the way they're shaped, this sort of triangular shape. So they're just kind of really starting. They're a little slower than the rest of them, as well as my golden treasures. They're slower to develop too. Where are they? Here they are. Right in here. But they'll get there. And over here, my serranos, they were the first ones to develop, which has been funny because Matt's been coming out here and picking off of them for his lunch. So he's enjoying that already. I will show you this plant right here is one that I pulled out of the garden, and I had to cut off all the leaves that were there because they died, but it's producing new leaves and new blossoms, and it'll kind of be more like a fall squash plant and will still bear fruit. This one's doing the same. So I'm really excited to see that it kind of is taking off again. I knew it would, or I had suspicion that it would, as long as it doesn't get trampled by the dog. So I may actually get some squash off those 2 that I pulled out of there. And they'll kind of provide into the latter part of the summer. And then the garden over here is doing really well. It's looking exactly how I wanted it to, just kind of providing a wall barrier around the porch. This hibiscus that I rescued from another part of the garden is doing really good, and it looks like it's about to blossom. Woot woot. Here they are. My lovely little sunflowers that tell me hello in my kitchen window every morning. These eggplants are huge and are producing. I've already cut one like 9-incher off the other day, and lots more are coming in. Like these guys, which are so funny, this little fused eggplant here. So I should have lots of eggplants soon. And I think this is our second, oh, that one's getting huge too. Look at that. I can't get the camera on it. I gotta get this bag off because the bag is not big enough. This is a German pink here. Oh man, it's filling up the bag quick. So these are probably they're in contenders for biggest tomato right there. So we'll see. These look really good right here around the porch. And these are the plants that I started like May 17th from seed, and they are just as big and prolific as the ones I started in April, which I find to be interesting. You know, the only difference was because by May 17th, the sun was already out and warm, is that once they germinated, I put them right outside in the sun to start growing, and they've done really well. And that's it, y'all. I gotta go inside and get ready for church, but I just thought I would give an update. I've been really busy out here harvesting and trying to keep this thing tame, so my videos have been less and less. I've also been sleeping in a little bit. Not getting out here at 6. We've had some late nights, and so if I don't get out here early, it's really hard for me to get videos during the day. But everything's looking really good. My only real disappointment are my watermelons, which they're still growing, but they had sort of a rough start because they were planted in a place where I didn't realize they were going to get so much shade from the peas, and so it really took them a while to get going. And I only have 1 fruit on the 3 plants, but we still have, what did I count, like 60 days until the first frost, so they still have time. They're a short developing fruit, this variety that I bought, so I still have time. But everything else really is looking really good, and I'm really excited to see, you know, what we end up harvesting. So no real disappointments other than the watermelon, and just learning still how much space these plants need sometimes. So anyway, it's been really fun to see your gardens that you've posted this week, and I will just keep you updated on things here. Y'all have a good day.